But my beats, they are hard.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the BCSN Sports Wrap. I'm Brian Fulford, and that is my man, my partner in the backcourt, A.D. Drew. A.D., how you doing, my man?
Vacation, getting ready for vacation. My last official event before I head away for a couple of days for myself.
Nice, nice. We all got to take a little time for self, especially in these days and times where, you know, we're dealing with all kinds of stress and worry. But I've got a feeling that we're starting to move back towards an old sense of normal, not that new normal that's been going around. I'm talking about the old normal.
There you go. There you go. But just because we have it, I will have my mask, I will have my Lysol, and I will have my hand sanitizer with me.
Yeah,
matter of fact, my brother, I'll be in your direction for a day or so.
Oh, hey man, it's wide open down here. Come on down here. Ain't no COVID down here. I didn't say that, but anyway. Allegedly.
Allegedly. Let Ron DeSantis tell it.
Right. We've stayed open. We've survived. You know, we haven't fallen off the face of the earth yet. You know, man. Somebody, you know, I remember, what's that phrase you always say about being right and wrong? What's that thing you always use? You always say?
I say you may not make the right decisions. They're just wrong decisions you cannot make.
Right. So I think DeSantis has lived by that motto, and so far, I mean, you know, he's kind of winning the battle in some people's eyes. You know, now
you don't have to be right; you just can't be wrong.
Right. Exactly. We're not gonna say he's right, but I can't say that he's wrong.
Right.
Let's just keep it real. So, well, this is a college basketball postseason show. This is sort of us putting a bow on the college basketball season. We just finished up with a national championship game just a couple of days ago. And this show is dedicated towards naming our BCSN All-American teams, our BCSN National Players of the Year, National Coaches of the Year, and of course, our HBCU National Champions, large school and small school. So before we get into that, Drew, we got to talk about this tournament. Because somebody, between the two of us, I just gave it away. I was a little sore about what happened. and I say that from the standpoint of, for the last 10 years, I've been telling people about Gonzaga. And my belief has been, what hurts Gonzaga is, yes, they may play a good non-conference, but their regular season hurts them when they get to the tournament. That's why they always seem to get knocked out somewhere when they face a power team, a power conference team, and somewhere in the regionals, maybe even the second round, right? Well, this year they had the whole thing of being unbeaten hanging on them. And look, I had a couple of pools that I was in, Drew. I had Gonzaga. So the fact that Baylor won the national title kind of caught me blindsided. And really, it skewed my whole perspective because I'll admit, Drew, the Final Four that night, the night where Gonzaga made this miraculous play in overtime at the buzzer, I missed the most important game, which was watching the way Baylor just dominated Houston. Had I seen that game with my own two eyes, I might have been even more worried than I was after the first TV timeout in the national championship game. So what is your take? What is your perspective as you watch that game? We kind of talked and we traded some text messages before the game, but what are your thoughts on just how the game took place, ended? Did anything surprise you from what you saw?
Bryan, back when the brackets came out 3 weeks ago, I called Baylor. Remember I told you.
Okay. I don't remember that, but I'll take your word on it.
Well, I can call somebody else who can verify that, Well, let me rephrase that. I put my money down on Baylor.
There you go. Hey, that's the same as calling it right there.
I called it. Actually, I put my money down on two teams.
Okay.
I was guaranteed to have one of those two teams in the finals because I called Houston and I called Baylor.
Okay.
And of course, they bet in the semifinals.
Right.
So I was guaranteed to have one of those two teams in the finals because until Houston ran into Baylor, they had a scare early in the tournament, but they were playing good ball.
Yes.
They just ran into a good Baylor team. And let's think about it. If COVID does not strike Baylor, when it strikes Baylor in the middle of the Big 12 season, Baylor may have very well been the undefeated team going into that national championship tournament.
I agree. I agree 100%.
Could you imagine the two teams in the national championship game undefeated?
That's what we were cheated from because I felt like that was going to happen somewhere about when did the Baylor COVID thing happen? Early February?
Yeah, I think maybe first week of February, late January, first week of February.
Yeah,
January, right in the heart of the conference season, and then they come back and they lose to Kansas.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong, Kansas was a decent team, but remember, Kansas had a rough start to their season.
They did. Kansas was not the Kansas that we grew up watching.
Not the Kansas of the Big Eight.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I thought somewhere around mid-January is when I started to believe that Baylor and Gonzaga were definitely we could have two undefeated teams. Once it got down to those two, I think it was, I really felt like, okay, these two teams could realistically get to the championship game and be undefeated. So, yeah.
And kudos back to Gonzaga because they had their own bout with COVID and still was able to come back and get back on the horse and still ride it to that undefeated championship game.
Right.
But remember, I told you, I think we talked either the night before or the morning of the championship game. I said, the one stat that has stuck out to me about this game, besides the fact that Gonzaga has the highest 2-point field goal percentage, but Baylor has one of the top 3-point percents in the thing. When the preseason number 1 and the preseason number 2 meet in the championship game.
Yep.
The preseason number 2 at that time was either 4-0 or 5-0.
4-0 they were at that
4-0. Yeah.
Now it's 5-0.
They were 4-0. They had won every time. And you and I went back and we Googled and found out, I believe it was 2002 was the last time that matchup happened. So I was like, it's something about that skewed me like, Baylor's going to win this game. Did I expect Baylor to win in the fashion that Baylor did? No one did.
I don't think anybody did, no.
And kudos to Gonzaga. Gonzaga cut it down, cut it to 10 at the half. I believe it got as close as 8 or 7 points in the second half before Baylor opened it back up and pulled away. And,
every time Baylor got it, every time Gonzaga got it to, like you said, 9, 8, whatever, even their point in the first
single
half,
digit.
They got to a single. They had a nice 8-0 run, 9-0 run. Baylor called a timeout, then came out and just smacked them in the mouth. It's like, hey, boom, here's a quick 2 buckets, get it back up to double digits, and then let's go.
Yeah.
you know.
And despite Gonzaga having the better size, I don't know if you noticed, Baylor had more fouls to throw at their bigs because
Oh,
I can't recall his name. The first guy fouled out before with 2 TV timeouts to go.
Yeah, Baylor was
fouled out going into the 8-minute timeout.
Baylor was the tougher team. They played with a higher level of toughness. I mean, I had an assistant coach describe it as an assistant coach at my school. He basically said Gonzaga looked too cool. It was like the level of the intensity of their cuts, everything they did, it was just too casual. And I think I kept waiting on Gonzaga to just flip the switch. And that switch was broken. I mean, Baylor had beat that switch to the point where it didn't even want to turn.
Right. And let's think about one thing. They say you don't have tired legs and et cetera, but the emotion of that overtime game against UCLA, which they should have won, but they should not have won it when they won it. That was a miraculous shot by Suggs.
Well, that game easily could have gone into double overtime.
That game was supposed to be in double overtime.
You're right. It's supposed to
but I mean, Suggs made the shot, not taking anything away from him. But the coming down from that emotional high, and I wish I would have looked it up. I wonder how many times in a semifinals game has gone to overtime, and they've come back and lost in the championship game. I guarantee you, it's more times. You don't have
to go that far. In the tournament, there was a stat, and I heard this. There was a stat in the tournament that in games that went into overtime, the next game, that team's win percentage was low. It was like maybe 1 out of every 3 times they won. I think the record was like 8-24, something to that effect. I wish I had it exact, but yeah, the number was trending or favorited towards, hey, if you go into overtime in the tournament, you're most likely losing the next game.
Right.
Now the X to that was, let's see, who had the overtime games in the tournament? UCLA had an overtime.
UCLA had an overtime game,
but they won.
Yes.
Somebody else hit a buzzer beater in the tournament in overtime, I think. I will say Florida went to overtime in the first round. Then they lost in the next round to Oral Roberts. Remember that first round? Yeah. There was somebody else in it, but again, the number was trending that if you go to overtime, you end up losing the next round.
Right.
Especially on the weekend where you just have the 1 day in between.
Yeah, the 1 day off. And one last thing, Brian, before we begin our transition, could you imagine Davion Mitchell at linebacker? Because that's what he looked like.
I'm so unaware of this. Has been a weird season. I paid attention to a team or two, but I didn't even know that was Donovan Mitchell's brother. I'll admit I had no idea that was Donovan Mitchell's brother. Didn't know too much about the kid. I didn't know too much about Baylor's.
He looks like he should be playing on Saturday afternoon physically. Oh
yeah. Well, look, they had the bigger, stronger dudes. I mean, let's just be real. They had dudes. The thing that happened to Gonzaga is what people always used to say what happens to Duke, or what used to happen to Duke. You would see I hate to use the word finesse, but it's the only word I can come up with. The softer looking team, whatever you want to let that be, the softer looking team is what Gonzaga kind of looks like the Dukes of the old 90s and the early 2000s, where they don't look like if they get in a street fight with a team that they're going to lose. And that's what happened to Gonzaga. Gonzaga got in a street fight with Baylor and they lost. How about this? One last thing before we go. How about my home city of Indianapolis in the Final Four? Don't come to Indianapolis unbeaten. 3 for 3 now. 3 for 3. Teams have come to Indianapolis Final Fours unbeaten, trying to match that magical season of 1976 when the last great undefeated team, the Indiana Hoosiers, won the national championship unbeaten. Since that,
the only one I can remember is UNLV. Now, who were the other two?
you had UNLV in 91.
Right.
You had Kentucky in 2015. I was there for that. I actually went to that one. I was there when Wisconsin beat them in the semifinal game. An epic playing of jump around by Wisconsin after that. After that win, the whole dome was jumping around when they played the whole, House of Pain jump around, which is like, anybody who, that's the Wisconsin sort of secondary theme song, right? And so that was the second. And then the third was this year. Although this one was in the championship game, which
so we got one game further.
Right. But it's the second time that a team was unbeaten in the championship game since 1976 and lost. Do you know who the other team was that lost in the championship game?
The forgotten team from the state of Indiana, Larry Bird and the Indiana State Sycamores, I believe, is there.
That's correct. That's correct. All
so
right.
Indiana all over the place.
Indiana all over the place, man. So this moment, you guys recognize my home state of Indiana, man. But look, don't come to Indy with an unbeaten record. You better lose before you come to Indy because we're not letting you have it. I'm just telling you now.
One last thing before we get out of here on this subject. Shout out to Scott Drew and for rebuilding that program after what happened to Baylor in the early 2000s, 2002, 2003, after Mike Bliss, I believe the coach's name was, and the Donaghy, whatever his name was, situation. And also shout out to the Baylor administration.
You can just say a guy got killed. Yeah. The guy got murdered in the program by his
coach
team.
tried to cover it up.
And the coach tried to cover it up. But for anybody who didn't remember that story, a player got killed by his teammate and the coach tried to cover it up. In the story. That's how bad it was at Baylor.
Right. But shout out to Scott Drew for taking over that program and rebuilding that program from scratch. Because they literally disbanded the program, and the Baylor administration for giving him the time to rebuild that program. Because, in this microwave society where everybody expects results in 2 to 3 years, they didn't give up on them. It took 18 years later, they get the ultimate prize.
And think about this, Drew. While that happened in the early 2000s, whenever it was, then you had what happened on the football program at Baylor, all the while, guess whose program was still at the top of their game winning national championships? Kim Mulkey and the Baylor women. Yes. The women's program was like holding down the anchor for Baylor athletics for almost, I think 10 years. 10 years at least. Yeah. At least 10 years. Kim Mulkey who got robbed, by the way, I'm going to say that here and move away. They got robbed by UConn in the regional finals. That's all I'm going to say. I'm still mad about that. They got robbed. Your official brethren, Drew, was in a bad position, didn't make the call. He shouldn't work a tournament game for 2 years because of that. Whoever he is, don't give me a name because he should be banned. I wouldn't know him anyway. Well, look, if it was you, I love you, but if it was you and you made that,
I would expect you to talk about it.
Yes, I would talk about you and say, Drew, you weren't in the right place where you should have been to make that call. Just let the people know that you had money on UConn, and then we'll move on. So, anyway, but look, we also got to give a shout out as we finish up talking about the tournament. We got to give a shout out to Norfolk State and Texas Southern, who became the first HBCU programs to win the first four. Actually, they put 2 HBCUs winning in the tournament is a first. We've had teams win, but
one or the other.
We've never had 2. And so on the same night, in the same building, on the same floor, we had Texas Southern and we had Norfolk State winning their games. It was a great day and that was the first day of the tournament. That's what I loved about how it started. First day of the tournament on a Thursday night, HBCU history was made. And so shout out to Texas Southern, shout out to Norfolk State. That was a great day. I mean, my parents are alums of Norfolk State. So, and it was in Indiana. So, I mean, they were excited.
Hey, Bryan, I wonder if, especially with the limited fans allowed in the building, I wonder if the first of all, the two teams were cheering for each other since they were in the same building. And the fans of the two teams that happened to attend were cheering for the opposite team when their team wasn't playing.
It's a good question. Who knows? I mean,
with the HBCU, it's a special brotherhood.
It is. But you also had to,
you cheer for other HBCUs when you see them compete.
Yeah, but you had limited seating and all that other stuff.
Yeah, but even if it was because it was probably just the parents of the players and a few other people like that.
Or a few.
Was the Texas Southern parents
two alums
cheering for Norfolk?
Probably. I gotta imagine if you bought a ticket.
And Norfolk cheering for Texas Southern.
I'm sure. But then again, I don't know if they were selling session tickets or whether because of how much time was in between games, it could have just been a one-game thing. It was like, hey, after your game is over, you got to exit. I don't know, but I didn't look too deep into it, to be honest with you. But so all right, so let's so again, as you're watching us here at BCSN SportsWrap, Bryan and A.D. want to remind you, make sure you're following us on our social media at MyBCSN1, the number 1. That's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook is where you can find us at MyBCSN1, the number 1. Make sure you check out the website, mybcsn.net. Anywhere we have a streaming event, we basically, did the baseball Lone Star Diamond Classic out in Frisco, Texas. All of those games were broadcast and streamed live on our website. Whether it's football, basketball, baseball, anything we do, it's streamed.
Volleyball,
yeah. All of it appears there. All replays of those games are there on our site. You can even stay up to date with everything going on with your school by simply going, take a look at your school in the conferences section. All of the Twitter feeds are there. So there's no reason why you can't go to our website and stay abreast of what's happening in HBCU sports. Make sure you download the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. If you're watching us up there in the top right corner there, MyJBN, MyBCSN, go to your Apple Store, your Google Play Store. Make sure you log in, and make sure you're subscribing. If you're listening to us on the podcast, in the audio version, or if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe so that way you can get alerts as to our show updates, and then share 2 people. If everybody shared it with 2 people, 2 friends, you would help to continue to make this platform that we have help us grow this show. And then of course, financially, hey, we love whatever you have to give. A cup of coffee, as I like to say, is enough for us. Just go to MyBCS. No, what is the website, Drew? It's not up on the screen, so hell, I can't remember. I can give all these other
MyBCSN.net
/support.
Yeah, /support. I thought you were talking about the general website.
Sorry. There you go. I'm trying to help us here. I didn't give all the other plugs. I'm throwing one to you. MyBCSN.com/support. MyBCSN.net. I think it's .com. Look, you even give people the wrong site. So again,
hey, I guarantee you that 15-second spot is going to run during this show.
Okay. Well, when you see
just watch it.
When you see it, make sure to go to that website and give us a cup of coffee. Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network.
They can follow their dreams.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection. giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
All right. So again, we have women's All-American teams, men's All-American teams, player of the year, coach of the year. Let's just kind of explain a little bit how this all works. Okay, so essentially we've been tracking players of the year all season, right? All season we've been tracking players of the year, players of the week in NAIA, Division-II, NCAA, and Division-I, NCAA. So we've been watching, we've been paying attention to who the top players are, and we basically have created two teams. It's a top 10 of the best players, regardless of position. You know, obviously basketball these days, you know, it's being played regardless of, you know, 2 forwards, 2 guards, a center. That's how we grew up. Nowadays, it's 3 and 2, whatever, man. It's just, we just want the best. We want to recognize the best backcourt players, the best front court players, and kind of give them their praise. So we're going to start with the women. We broke it up into NAIA, Division-II, and Division-I. All right. So let's start off with the NAIA players. So this is our first team on our NAIA. And I got to make sure I pull up all my information here, so I make sure I know who I'm talking about here. All right. The NAIA first team. It's gonna start with Miss Ashika Alexander from Langston University. Ashika helped Langston to an 8-8 record, 4-6 in the sack. Most importantly, though, that Langston team, as a 7 seed in the tournament, got all the way to the conference championship. I think they knocked out the 3 seed, knocked out the 2 seed, something to that effect.
Yeah, they knocked out 2, 3, and then lost to 1.
Lost to 1. I mean, in a close game. So she was she was a 3-time BCSN Player of the Week, which kind of puts her there. But more importantly, she led her conference in scoring, and then she was actually the number 5 scorer in NAIA. The travesty of all of the accomplishments was that SAC conference did not put Ashika on its first team. I'm going to talk, that's ridiculous. There's no way your conference scorer, leading scorer, and one of the top 10 scorers in the country should be on the second team. I mean, short of Jesus and the 4 of the 12 disciples being on the first team.
Which they were not.
Right. You can't leave Ashika Alexander off the first team. That was ridiculous. So shame on you, Sooner Athletic Conference. But anyway, Ashika averaged 22.2 a game, 6.7 rebounds a game, 1.9 assists, 2.3 steals, a block per game, shot 45.5% from the field, over 38% from the three-point arc, 65% free throw shooter. So congratulations to Ashika Alexander. Our next player, Miss Shaquanza Brown from Edward Waters. And needless to say, I got to pull up my notes here on Shaquanza.
Believe she led the nation in steals, Brian, and I'm going off the dome. She averaged over 5 assists per game, and she was the second leading scorer on Edward Waters and one of the top scorers in the GCAC conference.
Right. I believe she was also Defensive Player of the Year.
Yes,
in the conference. Yeah, definitely deserving. And look, if you've never seen Shaquanza play, she's only 5'4", and that might be giving her
good shoes on.
Yeah, I'm saying that's probably giving her an inch, but I mean, she goes. So I mean, she is a spitfire. and a hell of a player, very deserving on the All-American team, no doubt, first team. Also, her teammate, Laquanza Glover. Laquanza Glover from Edward Waters. Now, we should also mention Edward Waters here finished their season 13-5, I believe, was the final record. They were the GCAC co-regular season champs, went to the tournament finals. It is the third time in the past 4 years or past 4 seasons that Edward Waters was in that conference championship game. But Laquanza Glover, she was a first-team All-GCAC. She was our player of the week twice. She was the conference player of the week a couple of times. She was number 2 in the conference in scoring. Nationally, she was ranked 5th in offensive rebounds, 7th in total rebounds. She had 11 double-doubles in the year. She's actually, I believe, the only player on our first team that averaged a double-double. She averaged 17 and 12.7. Added in with 3.4 assists, 2.7 steals a game, 50% from the field, 60% from the free throw line. Laquanza Glover may be listed as she has numbers as a forward, but she is a guard.
Because she's actually a guard side. I think she's listed at like 5'8", 5'9", but she might be 5'7".
Yeah, she's more around 5'7", no doubt.
And Brian, one other thing about her, 50 career double-doubles.
Yeah. 50 career double-doubles. Wow, that's nice.
Yeah.
All right. Also on the first team, Taisha Juhan from Talladega. Talladega had a 15-3 record, 5-1, one of those co-champions in the GCAC. She was actually the GCAC Player of the Year, a first-team All-GCAC player. She was our Player of the Week one time. She was number 3 in the conference in scoring, number 4 in the conference in steals. She averaged 17 points a game, 7.7 rebounds a game, 2.3 assists, 2.6 steals, 40% from the field, shot 36% from the three-point line, 71% at the free throw line. So Talladega, unfortunately, one of those teams that did not make it into the postseason tournament. Neither did Edward Waters, which also was disappointing.
And Edward Waters was the highest ranked team that was left out of the tournament. And I don't mean that just because they were an HBCU. They were the highest ranked team left out of the NAIA tournament.
Right.
As far as RPI or whatever the net or whatever they call this thing these days.
Yeah, so ridiculous. But congratulations to Taisha Juhan. And then our final member of the first team, Kiana Tolbert of Florida Memorial. Florida Memorial 10-11 on the year, 99 in the conference. Tolbert was she was a first team All Sun Conference, 3-time Sun Conference Player of the Week. She was our BCSN Player of the Week twice. In the Sun Conference, she led the conference in scoring. She was the number 3 overall scorer, points per game in the nation, and had the number 2 percentage in the conference in field goal percentage. Averaged 22.7 a game, 5.9 rebounds a game, 2.6 assists. Shot 46% from the field, 35.5 from the three-point arc, 61.5 at the free throw line. Just an amazing scorer. I mean, Kiana Tolbert can go get a bucket anytime she wanted to go get a bucket. It was there for her. So yes. Outstanding. So yeah. So those those players, Ashika Alexander from Langston, Shaquanza Brown, and Laquanza Glover, both from Edward Waters College, Taisha Juhan from Talladega College, and Kiana Tolbert from Florida Memorial. Anything else you want to add on that first team, Drew?
No, it's just interesting, Brian. I was just thinking about this. You down 1 point. Who you get the ball to out of this group? Because all of them can put it in the hole.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer that. I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, that's interesting because you got either Brown or Juhan that's going to bring the ball up the floor. You're most likely going to have Alexander or Tolbert out on the wings. And if either one of those two ladies get the ball, I mean, you
got to shoot. You need to shoot it with about 5 to 6 seconds to have Laquanza available to get the offensive rebound in case.
That's what I was going to say. The odd person out is probably Laquanza, but if it's a miss, she's most likely to go get the rebound and go right back up with it. So that's kind of how I see that playing out. So yeah, that's an interesting idea. I don't know whoever has the ball in their hands is the one that's going to do something with it. I mean, short of Brown, that might be the true passing guard of that group is Shaquanza Brown.
Yeah, if you got to go coast to coast, that's where you want to have the ball. If it's in a half court set, you may run something a little bit different.
Correct. All right, let's move over to Division-II. Our Division-II players. Now, the thing about
going Division-II, or you doing second team?
I'm sorry. Yeah. I guess we said we do that. So let's quickly. I just want to make mention of our second team in the NAIA. Our second team in the NAIA, we have Nina Bishop from Xavier, Louisiana. Xavier was the GCAC conference tournament champions. Even won a game in the postseason. Talia Edwards from Langston. Talia, part of that Langston team that made the run into the tournament. Shay Johnson from Rust. Shay, I believe, was a first-team all-conference selection. First or second. I believe she was first, though. Jalen Lawson of Langston. So
she was player of the week for us one time.
Jalen Lawson.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a total of 3 Langston players in that top 10. And then Amari Pittman from Tougaloo. Tougaloo may not have had the greatest of seasons, but Amari
Pittman is a balking bucket.
Right. She was definitely a standout and could definitely put some points up when she needed to. So again, Nina Bishop from Xavier, Talia Edwards, Langston, Shay Johnson from Rust, Jalen Lawson from Langston, and Amari Pittman from Tougaloo. So that is our NAIA group, first and second team. Let's go to Division-II, NCAA Women's Division-II now. Now, the thing about the Division-II, many of these young ladies, unfortunately, did not get a chance to play as many games as, some of the teams in
as anybody else. Just frankly, Division-II men or women did not play a lot of games. They didn't even play what a normal conference schedule would be this year.
Right. Yeah,
most of them played in low teens in games. I don't think any of them played 15, except for West Virginia State.
Yeah, except for West Virginia State, and the minimum to be eligible for the tournament was 11 games. Is that correct, Drew?
Yes, on Division-II level.
Right. So it was definitely half of a season in terms of a normal year, but these ladies still played, and so we want to recognize them. And again, any of the people that we recognize, their school or their program had to play at least a minimum number of games for us to include them. Okay. So let's start with the first team, Division-II. We're going to start with Ayana Bay from Benedict. And, Benedict went 12-3 on the year. And in those, that's 15 games, but Bay only played in 13 games. She averaged 18.2 a game, 8.6 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 1.2 steals, shot 51% from the field, just under 40% from the arc, and 84.5%. And look, Bay was one of the top players. I believe she was the SIAC Player of the Year last year.
Last year, correct.
Yeah, and obviously the SIAC not choosing to play or host tournaments or championships this year, Benedict didn't get a chance to defend their championship. So pretty much everything between Benedict really came down to that matchup that they had with Tuskegee.
And you said they lost how many games this year?
Yeah, Benedict went 1-3 in the 4 games. Again, that's their 3 losses to Tuskegee. So tough year for Bay and Benedict. It'll be interesting to see if she comes back next season. I don't know what her future plans are, but it'll be interesting to see if she comes back for the 5th year. I'm sure that the coaches would definitely want her back if she decided to come back. Also on the first team for Division II, India Blakely from Tuskegee. And India, she averaged 13.6 a game, played in about 14 games. One of the top leaders in assists per game in the nation. 5.2 assists. I think that was in the top 25. I think she was like 23 or 24 in the nation in terms of assists. But she definitely was part of a dangerous 1-2 punch for Tuskegee this year. And of course, Tuskegee, with a record of 12-2, got the at-large berth into the NCAA Division-II tournament. And of course, I think they were deeply benefited from the 3 wins over Benedict. So congratulations to India Blakely. Destiny Fields of West Virginia State. Now, West Virginia State played in the MEC, the Mountain, I believe that's the Mountain East Conference.
Correct.
They were 8-8 during the course of the year. She was second team all conference, averaged 13.9 a game, 7.3 assists, just about a point, 1 assist a game, 2 steals a game, 51.7% from the field, 73 at the free throw line. And that West Virginia team, though, they put up points. That team, if you never got a chance to watch West Virginia State, they just play a fun brand of basketball. Their games need to be broadcast every week because they put up points, man. And
it's kind of like what Kentucky has been in traditionally as far as scoring, as far as the pace of their scoring.
Yeah, that entire conference, they just score points, man. There's some of the top scoring women's teams in Division II are in that conference, the MEC. So that team goes. So you may look at 13.9 and it may not seem like a lot, but they've got scores on the team. I mean, she's one of, I think, of about 3 or 4 girls
with double-digit scoring.
Yeah, who average double-digit points. So it's like any given night, somebody could just go off. And so also on the first team, Shayla Jackson from Shayla Jackson, excuse me. I always get that wrong. I see a Shayla, but then it's always a Shayla. Shayla Jackson from Tuskegee. She was our BCSN Player of the Week one time. She played in 14 games, averaged 17.4, 9.4 rebounds a game, 1.9 steals, 58.2 from the field, 78% from the free throw line. And I can think of no better praise for Miss Jackson. You know, that big series against Benedict, she dropped 36 and 14, I think were the numbers, in game 2 of that series, which was the first win in how many years had it been? Almost
2013.
Yeah, almost 8 years, 9 years, something like that.
Or was it 2011 and 13 losses? Something like that.
It was a good period of time.
It was Barack's first term, so I think it was.
No, it was Barack's second term. It was 2013. Okay. It was 2013, and I think it was 11 wins. So, but yeah, that first game out the box, she had decent numbers, but game 2, she 36 and 14. And that just started. They won the next 2 games in that series. She had I think that was the week she was Player of the Week.
Yes, it was.
That week. So props to her. A young lady that many people probably didn't even hear about this year, Ms. Diamond Jones over at Fort Valley State, rounds off the first team for Division-II. Diamond, Fort Valley was 6-5 during the season, but Diamond averaged 15.5 a game, 2.3 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 2.8 steals per game. 37% from the field, 33% from the arc, 65% from the free throw line. Outstanding scorer, one of the top scorers in Division-II and amongst HBCU schools. The second team for the Division-II level made up of Kayla Cunningham for West Virginia State. She was the number 2 scorer, or I believe number 2 or 3 on that team. You also had Shayla Jackson from Lincoln, Missouri. You had Wakira Johnson-Kelly from Benedict. That's the second Benedict player. You had Charity Spears from West Virginia State.
Cheers.
What'd I say?
Cheers.
Charity. What'd I say?
SP.
All right. Charity Shears. Thank you. You always corrected me. Well,
Mama don't want you to get their name wrong.
Yes. All right. Charity Shears and Lena Eunice from Tuskegee. So Tuskegee with 3 players in the top 10. West Virginia State with 3 players in the top 10. Congratulations to all those ladies for being recognized on our All-American first and second team. Now we go to Division-I. And this was an exciting group of young ladies. I really enjoyed watching these players. And these players represented some of the best players and teams of the year. I really think the choice for player of the year, you could have legitimately made an argument for 4 or 5 different young ladies. I really think you could have. And I think however you choose to value or whatever, however you look at the word value in terms of most valuable player is how you might have chosen who would be the most valuable player, so on and so forth, or the national player of the year. But I think you had a couple of conference players of the years. Definitely all of these ladies on the first team, all of them were first team in their conference. So we're going to start with Darianna Lewis from Alabama A&M. Now, they were 10-7 in the season, 8-6 in the SWAC. Of course, she was first team. She was a 4-time SWAC Player of the Week. She was a 2-time BCSN Player of the Week. She led the conference. Now, she led the SWAC in scoring, rebounding, and field goal percentage. Again, she led the conference in scoring, rebounding, and field goal percentage. Averaged 17.8 and 13 rebounds per game. Her rebounding average was, I believe, number 2 in the nation. Averaged 2.1 blocks a game, 60% from the field, and shot 62% at the free throw line. So outstanding numbers by Miss Lewis.
Brian, and before we go on with this list, and I'm looking at these and thinking about some of the nominees that we saw come across our list, the HBCU conference, particularly the SWAC, are usually known as guard conferences. But we've got a lot of bigs who are represented on this list and on our subsequent list on the women's side.
Well, I think you have a lot of forwards, bigs, as you call them, that came from other schools. When you look at the list of players, I mean, on our first team, you've got 3 players that came from other schools. I can't speak to a couple of the young ladies. I'm not sure, but I know for sure 3 of them did. They transferred to an HBCU. So say whatever you want to say about that, but whether it was, hey, you didn't find what you wanted to find at the other schools, and then when you got to the HBCU that you're at, you kind of blossomed in, so we're kind of seeing that's what we're seeing, Drew. And so, the question is, can we get them? Can those young ladies come in at the young ages and develop, into what we see?
Correct.
That's, I think, the biggest question is going to be down the road. Okay, back to our All-American list. How about Miss Deja Rogan, a.k.a. Rogan, from Jackson State? She was the SWAC Player of the Year. Of course, led Jackson State to an outstanding regular season and conference championship. 18-5 record, 14-1 in the SWAC. She was the SWAC tournament MVP. She was twice a BCSN Player of the Week. She was second in the SWAC in scoring and in three-pointers a game. Led the SWAC in free throw shooting, I believe, free throw percentage. That's 17.2 points a game, 3.5 rebounds a game, 2.5 assists a game, 2 steals, 42.5% from the field, 40% from the arc, and 80%, just under 81 actually, from the free throw line. Man, Deja can put it up, no doubt. And I really outstanding player, man. Part of a dynamic 1-2 punch, no doubt. From North Carolina A&T, Miss Shannon Scott. She led North Carolina A&T to a 14-2 record, 9-1 in the conference. The Aggies were the MEAC South Division champs, and then they won the tournament. She was a first-team all-MEAC player. She was the MEAC Player of the Week 4 times during the year. She was once our BCSN Player of the Week. She was first in the conference in the I think it's a very underrated stat, the assist-to-turnover ratio. She was number
one. If you play point guard, it's not.
Yeah, she was number 1. She was number 2 in the conference in steals, number 3 in the conference in field goal percentage, number 4 in scoring, number 5 in rebounding, assists, and free throw percentage. I mean, Scott just checked all the boxes for A&T this year. 13.7 a game, 8.7 rebounds, 3.5 assists, just over 2 steals a game, shot 44% from the field, and just under 80% at the free throw line. So, and I believe she too was a transfer to North Carolina A&T for her grad season. So she had a great season for A&T. How about Miss Jayla Thornton from Howard, the MEAC Player of the Year? Led Howard to a 15-4 record, 10-2 in the conference. She was a 5-time MEAC Player of the Week, 2-time BCSN Player of the Week, first team all MEAC, of course, second in the conference in free throw percentage, 5th in scoring, and I believe she is Howard's all-time 3-point shooter in terms of 3-point field goals made. Averaged 13.5 points a game, 3.1 rebounds a game. That 3-point average was 32.9%. And shot 81% from the free throw line. Think about, Drew, we got 3 young ladies right there shooting in the 80% ballpark at the free throw line. That's outstanding.
What our friend Rick Polk say? Free 99.
Yes, indeed. All right. And then the 5th member of our first team would be Amisha Williams from Jackson State. She was the SWAC Defensive Player of the Year. And as I pull up her averages, I think let me see, I can tell you exactly here. She averaged 15.7 a game, but nationally is where, she ranked number 9 in total blocks in the nation. 79 blocks. She was 5th in blocks per game nationally, just over 3 a game. Double doubles. She was 5th in the country in double doubles. She had 17 double doubles during the course of the season. That's 10 or more points and 10 or more rebounds. For those of you who are like, what the hell is a double-double? And she was 14th in the nation in field goal percentage, 56.18.
If you don't know what a double-double is, we thank you for tuning in to this show, but you may not catch some of the references in this show, but this is a basketball-only show.
Yeah. The second team, now, I'll be honest, Drew, this second team is doggone just as good as the first team. And it's like, I would really love to see this second team play the first team. If I had to,
Can you imagine them going against each other in practice?
I would love to have an all-star matchup of our first team versus the second team. I don't know. I don't know how we can hook that up for the summer. That'd be a great summer series. I don't know. Just anybody that wants to make that happen, you send us a tweet, let us know. But here's our second team. Okay, and you may listen to our second team and say, no, that person should be on the first team.
Here's the question, Brian. If somebody says that, who are you taking off?
Who are you taking off? That's the part that always stumps you, and that's how you know you got a good list. Because if you got to figure out who am I taking off, yeah, that's how tough it was. So I'll go through the names here. You got Ayanna Emanuel from Alabama State, who was a first team all conference in the SWAC. She averaged 16.4 a game, part of that dynamic duo for Alabama State. Then you had Anjanae Hutton, only a freshman from Howard University. And I'll tell you, her numbers were outstanding this year for I mean, I don't want to minimize it by saying for a freshman, but honestly, for a freshman, she had some really nice numbers. I had them pulled up here. So
just think when she gets back to normal with normal training and everything else that you should be getting your freshman year. She's not even getting that and still putting up ridiculous numbers.
Right. Hutton averaged, I can tell you here in a second. Let's see. She averaged 11 points a game, which, was top 15 in the conference, but she was number 2 in the conference in rebounds at 9.8. She was number 1 in the conference in field goal percentage, right at 50%. Block shots, she was number 5 in the conference in block shots per game. Offensive rebounds, she was number 3 in the conference. Defensive rebounds, she was number 2. And again, freshman, true freshman, or maybe she's a redshirt freshman. So that's, anybody that's wondering, that's how she made this list. Outstanding job. Then you've got Anissa Rivera from North Carolina Central. And I'll tell you what, man, Anissa Rivera's numbers, she could have easily been the MEAC Player of the Year. I don't know what the final votes were, but when you go and look at the stat line for Anissa Rivera had some really outstanding numbers this year for North Carolina Central. She led the conference in scoring, 16.5 a game. She led the conference in rebounding, 10.5. She was the only player in the conference to average a double-double. Her field goal percentage was number 11 in the conference. Steals was top 10. 3-point field goal percentage was number 6 in the conference. So not only can she shoot the rock, but she's rebounding it and scoring it as well. And then she led the conference in block shots. And Anissa was 9th in the country in blocks per game. So, Amisha Williams was number 5. Anissa Rivera was the only other HBCU women's player in the top 10. Also on a Division-II, on the Division-I team, Shamaya Ward from Alabama State. Miss Ward averaged right there at about 16 points a game, 16.3, matter of fact, for Alabama State. Her and her teammate, definitely a dynamic duo. Ward had 12 double-doubles during the course of the season, which was 27th best in the in Division-I. You know, just taking into consideration, she played 5 less games than Amisha Williams. You know, Amisha Williams, who had 17. Ward, had she had 5 more games, you know, had Alabama State played a non-conference, who knows where Ward and Emmanuel's stats might be.
Right.
You know? And then the last member of the second team, Deja Winters from North Carolina A&T State. And Deja Winters, heck of a shooter for A&T. Of course, made the clutch bucket in the conference tournament game, in the championship game, matter of fact. She was actually the 4th leading scorer in the conference, averaging 14.1 points a game. Shot just under 40% from the field. Number 5 in the conference in steals. Number 2 in 3-point field goal percentage. She put up 150 threes on the year, which were the most, and she made 52, which was the most in the conference. So, you know, she definitely, that was Coach Robinson's, you know, shooter. I mean, when you needed a bucket, and obviously she's cold as ice, as you saw in the tournament. So, again, the second team consists of Ayana Emanuel, Ajane Hutton, Anissa Rivera, Shamaya Ward, Deja Winters from North Carolina A&T. Let's take a break, Drew, and when we come back from the break, let's introduce our National Players of the Year on the women's side, and then our Women's Coaches of the Year from the NAIA Division-II and Division-I level. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap. This is our basketball postseason show with Bryan and A.D. We'll be back right after these words.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Follow the Black College Sports Network on social media at MyBCSN1, the number 1, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at MyBCSN1. Welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Brian Fulford, AD Drew here. Make sure you're following us on social media at MyBCSN1, the number 1. If you want to follow us individually, you can follow Drew at BCSN Drew. Find me at DRB365. And again, this is our basketball postseason show. We've just given our women's All-American team from the NAIA Division-II and Division-I levels. So now we get into naming and announcing our National College Women's Player of the Years. And very tough choices, no doubt. I mean, all of these ladies, you know, from our first team, obviously our Player of the Year comes from the first team. And so we want to thank the voters, our voting folks from the HBCU Pro Sports Media Association, as well as you fans. I mean, we did have a single vote was given to the fans. So the fans got a vote as if they were one person, and, you know, they made their votes heard. And so between the votes from the fans and our media members from the HBCU Pro Sports Media Association. We have our players of the year. So from the NAIA, our 2021 NAIA Women's Player of the Year is from Edward Waters College, and she is Miss Laquanza Glover. Laquanza Glover from Edward Waters. And we'll get that squared away there. So if you're watching this, you'll be like, hey, who was that? So our players of the year, I'll just while we're getting that squared away, again, just to recap, Laquanza, I mentioned a few stats earlier, her accomplishments during the season. Laquanza from Edward Waters.
Keep talking. This what happens when you do live sometime.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just trying to find my info on Laquanza. That's all. So Laquanza, yeah, from Edward Waters again, regular season co-champs. She was a first-team All-GCAC, two-time BCSN Player of the Week, GCAC Player of the Week 3 times, number 2 in scoring, number 5 in offensive rebounds in the nation, number 7 in total. I believe we only had 4 players. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, Drew, only 4 women's players drop a 20-20. What I mean by 20-20, 20 points and 20 rebounds. I believe Amisha Williams did it. I believe Darianna Lewis did it. Laquanza Glover did it twice. Does that sound about right?
That is exactly right.
All right, you got other stuff going on. What the hell you got going on in those boxes, Drew? I looked up and it's like there's somebody else going on in the box. What's going on there, brother? All right, there we go. We got the graphics squared away.
We got it squared, brother.
All right. We might have just teased and give a spoiler alert on somebody. Spoiler alert! Look away. Hope you didn't see all the other stuff that we dropped. We might need to go in post-production here and clean that up, but who knows? You may just be watching it and you'll be like, oh, I just saw the player of the week from another division. But anyway, Laquanza Glover, congratulations on being our 2021 NAIA Player of the Year. Well-deserved. Drew, any thoughts on Laquanza?
I mean, she is just a outstanding player. She not a whole lot that we haven't already said about her. She can score at will, bro. Not only she can score at will, she rebounds at will. She does everything that a coach wants a player to do.
Let me ask this. Maybe, I'm not going to ask you to reveal who you voted for in particular, but maybe just the thought process in voting. And as you talk to other people, and maybe this will give people who are watching this or listening behind the scenes or behind the mic thought. What goes into your thought process or voters when you're deciding on who to give or recognize as the National Player of the Year?
For me,
yeah, you can generalize it. I mean, whatever.
Obviously, you look at stats. You look at the best teams, best players, best teams, and then it's just what do you personally prefer? When you got somebody who's a double-double, even when their scoring is off, they've got their rebounds. When you're looking at the guard position, you may not squat this game, but when you are, when your assists are up and your steals are up, you start looking at those intangibles that separated. And then let's be real, Brian. I don't care if it's YMCA or NBA, WNBA. 9 times out of 10, everybody in the stands knows who the best player on the floor is. Does the best player on the floor live up to that expectation?
Right, because
if they do night in and night out, that's who you consider for your MVP, most outstanding player, player of the year, whatever you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, you got to imagine the other team is game planning, knowing what you do and who you are. So,
right. If this was high school, would they put a boxing one on her?
I think it'd be hard to put a boxing one on her.
But those are the type of things that you look for. If this was high school, are you putting a boxing one on? When the coach is running in the scout team in practice, who are they saying this is the person that you have to stop? Get the ball out their hand, run them off their spots. Don't let them catch right here. Don't let them catch right there.
Right.
Who is the name that you see the most when you get that game plan for your next opponent?
Yeah. I think it says a lot for Glover to win this award, and I think the voting was very close between Glover and another player, and so that just tells me that this definitely was a tough category for the voters. All deserving players here. I would not. I think you could have gone in a couple of directions with the talent here. Again, you had two top 10 scorers, actually two top 5 scorers in NAIA basketball that were also part of our first team. So that just tells you the kind of competition that Glover was going up against in this category. And she really only had she only went head to head with one of these players, and that was Juhan. So you had a lot of diversity in this group of players. So really proud of our voters and their selection. Really proud of our first and second team. So,
and one other thing, Bryan, Ashika Alexander, who finished second to Glover in the voting, if she is not playing in Langston, Oklahoma, and playing in Texas, in Georgia, or somewhere closer where a lot more people could see her, she may have gotten over the top. Although Glover had a tremendous season, she's second to none. But Ashika Alexander had a very comparable season in her conference, and there's a backstory to her. One day hopefully we can get her on the SportWrap and have her go over that story. But she has a tremendous story, and she has the numbers to put up with it.
I'll counter what you said. I mean, I'm not going to discount it in terms of what people viewed, but a lot of times people don't get to view things. And so you kind of base your decisions on some of the superlatives that you win. And I will say that, again, one of the great travesties in all of this is that Ashika Alexander was placed on the second team in her conference. That's BS. And I will say that without knowing who the players are or watching them play, if you look at superlatives and you match up A versus A, B versus B, and you see, oh, she made first team conference, she made second team. If it came down to that, I don't know that to be true, but I'm just kind of thinking how other people might think. That's all I'll say. So,
I mean, you have to agree with that sentiment, Bryan. The fact that Glover was first team GCAC, Alexander was second team GCAC, may have been that swing vote in some of our voters' minds.
Right, which is shameful, and that's why I said what I said. That it's a shame on the Sooner Athletic Conference for even putting her on the second team. I mean, you agree with me on that part?
I definitely agree with you on that.
Okay.
She was the only one of our first team NAIAs who was not on their conference.
Yeah, she led the freaking conference in scoring. In the nation, one of the top 5, top 10. I mean, you mean that's not worthy enough to? I mean, come on, that's
no.
Anyway,
let me ask you just one last question.
I don't want to be on that all day because that's
just one last question on that, Bryan. Taisha Juhan, Conference Player of the Year. Laquanza Glover, our National Player of the Year, same conference. In that case, it didn't affect the votes.
Right. And you know what? Juhan may have been affected by the fact that their team didn't win the conference. You know, I mean, all of these
they didn't win outright.
They didn't win the tournament. Yes, or make it. Yeah, I mean, and neither did EWC. So, but mean, we're talking.
EWC defeated
Talladega. Yeah. So I mean, if you go head to again, this is the stuff that we're just telling you. This is the
correction. Xavier defeated Talladega. They didn't even get to match up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on, Drew. Let's move on. We got the graphics straight away because I saw like 3 other. I saw like our entire chord we gave up there. So I mean, you know, I don't know. All right. So. Well, there's our you're ahead of me, but anyway, our Division II.
I thought we were ready to go.
Yeah, I didn't say anything yet. Anyway, our Division II Player of the Year from Tuskegee University, Shayla Jackson from Tuskegee. I said that right, correct?
Yes, you got it right that time.
All right, I got to remember. Hard I and not the A. Shayla Jackson from Tuskegee, again, 17.4, 9.4 rebounds, and I'll, you know, look, her and Ayanna Bay were probably the main 2 candidates that most people and most of the voters went back and forth with, I'm sure, and it probably speaks volumes that Tuskegee beat Benedict 3 out of 4 times, and that Tuskegee went to the tournament. That clear as day. I mean,
that probably would put Jackson over the top.
Yeah, that definitely it probably did. It probably put so, but not that she's not deserving. Well deserving, best player, best team usually gets the MVP. So I mean so our National Player of the Year in Division II is Shayla Jackson from Tuskegee. Well deserved. Congratulations to Miss Jackson and Tuskegee for what they accomplished. All right, moving on now. This one was close. And you know, as I said, we got easily among our first team, all 5 of these young ladies, you could have made the argument for Player of the Year. But the votes came in, and our 2021 Division I Women's Player of the Year from Alabama A&M, Darianna Lewis. That's right. Miss Lewis comes in as the BCSN Player of the Year. And I think the thing that stands out to me, now, Alabama A&M's record was above 500, 10-7, 8-6. She didn't have the kind of team success that the young ladies from Jackson State, A&T, or Howard had, who were all part of the first team. But she also didn't have a number 2 like those players. I mean, Rogan had Williams, Scott had Winters, Thornton had Hutton, and another young. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean a dominant. Hey, if your game is not on tonight, we're gonna go to the number 2. It's like a 1A and 1B versus a 1 and a 2. That's what those other players had. Lewis didn't really have a 1B. She was 1, and she's still the only player to average a double-double. She led the conference in scoring, rebounding, and field goal percentage. I mean, she was the best scorer, best post player, and we're talking amongst, as you said, Drew, we're talking in a conference that had Amisha Williams, Emmanuel from Alabama State, Ward. I mean, this was a tough conference in the post, and Lewis came out. I think when the votes came out, I don't remember or recall who was number 2. I don't even think we need to go there, but I just think definitely it was well deserving. And so, you know, to each his own. You know, I think there'll be people who'll see that and say, but she didn't win Conference Player of the Year. well, what were the votes for the conference player of the year? I mean, how close was it? So, it's all based on voting. All of these young ladies are deserving. I'm just giving you my opinion based on the stats that I see. So, Darianna Lewis, 2021 BCSN Women's Player of the Year. What are your thoughts, Drew, on Lewis?
Great performance once again. No, she really didn't have a number 2 player. And also, let's keep in mind, Alabama A&M was ravaged by COVID stoppages. They pretty much lost the back half of the month of January into early February, which may have contributed to her not getting even better numbers this year. And then we're talking both men and women with Alabama A&M. And this is also on the same thing. Isn't it ironic that the football team now, due to no fault of their own, is having the same issues? Alabama A&M. Not that they have COVID, but everybody who they're supposed to play is dealing with COVID. So hopefully, finally, this weekend, they'll get a game in.
I think the part of the season that was affected by Alabama A&M, you mentioned that one part in either January or February, but they were also affected by a period in December because they played 3 non-conference games. They went 2-1 in those non-conference games. Think about that for a second. They went 2-1 but they also had a handful of non-conference games that got canceled on them. So we talk about what Lewis's stats might have looked like. Who knows, but where A&M might have stood. But A&M will be a favorite next year, I think, in the SWAC. Especially if Lewis comes back, with Lewis coming back, and with some of the other players that they had this year. This was a good competitive squad. I don't have all the numbers on how competitive they were against Jackson State or Alabama State, but I mean, that's your hurdle. So it was like, if that was tier 1, Alabama A&M was sitting right at the top of tier 2 in that conference. And I think when we get back to a normal year, they'll be looking at an opportunity to get right back to the top. Okay, so again, just to recap, our players of the year, again, in the NAIA, Laquanza Glover from Edward Waters, Division-II, Shayla Jackson from Tuskegee, and on Division-I, Darianna Lewis from Alabama A&M. Congratulations, ladies. Let's move over to the Women's Coach of the Year. 3 outstanding coaches, had great seasons. Credit to them and their staffs being able to manage this very tough COVID season. I'm sure there were points of the year where they didn't even know if they were going to have a season. I'm sure there were points in their season that got interrupted, whether it be because of situations that happened on their campus or their program, or maybe even their athletic department. They all had to face the challenges of this season, but I think they'll find that this year was rewarding in its own way. So our NAIA Coach of the Year, Charmaine Wilson from Edward Waters College is our Coach of the Year. And let me see. I just lost my notes that I had on Charmaine. I gotta love this. So Charmaine, let's see. I don't know if you're able to pull those up or not, Drew. I've lost my notes. So anyway, from what I do recall, Charmaine Wilson, this was her 10th season at Edward Waters. She has a career record, I believe it is like 171 and 110, I think is the math. She spent 7 years at Bethune-Cookman prior to coming over Edward Waters. And over the last 4 seasons, Edward Waters has been to the conference tournament championship game 3 of the last 4 years. And then remember, GCAC was actually able to have a conference tournament the year of COVID. They were the last conference to actually have a tournament. Right. So they actually had their conference tournament. So she's led them to the tournament the championship game, 3 to 4 last 4 years. This year was the first year that they actually went to won the regular season as part of a trio of teams that were co-conference champions. She's just done a great job. This year's team was 13-5, an outstanding season. Very disappointed for them that it wasn't recognized as it should have been at the end of the year by a trip to the NAIA tournament. But needless to say, we've had a chance to talk many a times with Coach Wilson. Always enjoyed her company, always enjoyed her presence and what she's about. She's about the right kind of things. And so I hope Edward Waters finds a way to hold on to her. That's all I'm going to say. But congratulations, Coach Wilson. Drew, what are your thoughts about Charmaine Wilson?
No, great job right there. Great job from her because she gets a lot of local girls. Glover is from right there in Jacksonville, Florida. Brown is from right up the road in Daytona. She gets a lot of players from that Georgia, Florida area to fill out her roster. So that's great. That's good for fan support right there. So great job, Coach Wilson. And it's going to be interesting. That's all I say. The suitors out there, so hopefully Edward Waters and the alumni step up to the plate.
Yeah. So congratulations, Coach Wilson. Moving over to our Division-II Coach of the Year, and I think it goes without saying that our Coach of the Year is Trelane Powell from Tuskegee. This was her 4th season as the head coach. The team went 12-2 this year, earning that berth into the Division-II playoffs. And this comes just off a couple of seasons ago where Tuskegee had their best record in 19 years in the 2018-2019 season. And I believe they finished with over 20 wins or right at 20-6, which was the first 20-win season since 2000 in the Tuskegee program. That was also, they played in the championship game of the SIAC that same year against Benedict. So that was, and it should be noted, in 2020, the SIAC, I don't believe that they were able, no, they did have their tournament. Yeah, they had their tournament in 2020. They just got it in, if I'm not mistaken. Do you recall that, Drew? During the COVID year? Did you hear me? I can't hear you.
My bad, bro. What was the question again?
I said, did last season, did the Division-II, did SIAC have their tournament last year?
Yes. Benedict won it.
Right, Benedict won it. So that was 2 years ago.
They defeated Tuskegee.
Oh, so okay. So they were in the championship 2 consecutive years against Benedict.
It was just last year against Benedict.
Just last year. Okay. I thought it was 2 years ago.
No, it was like it was the 20 season.
Okay. All right. So they
matter of fact, SIAC, I believe, finished the day before the GCAC tournament.
Okay. So last year is when they lost in the tournament, but the year before that is when they had the 20-win season. Okay. Yeah. Got it clear. And then again, 4 seasons. Coach Powell went from, when she came in her first year, 6-21, turned it all the way around within, one recruiting cycle, and walked in 12-2 going to the tournament. Congratulations, Coach Powell. They're going to be a dangerous team going forward. Yes. No doubt. Going to be a dangerous team going forward. All right. Our Division-I Women's Coach of the Year is Ms. Tamika Reed, Coach Reed from Jackson State, completing her 3rd season at Jackson State. with back-to-back regular season championships, consecutive conference, won the conference tournament in 2021. The last time there was actually a tournament, they were in the conference tournament that year, which was her first year. In the conference, Coach Reed has a 42-9 record over the past 3 years. Let me say that again. 42-9 the last 3 seasons. This past
basically don't show up to play when Jackson State is on your schedule.
Well, look, in conference, you don't have any choice. So it's just like you just stuck.
I'll just take the forfeit.
Yeah. Oh, well, come on now, Coach. They were 18-6 this past season, which let's not underscore that. In many years, it's hard to get an 18-6 season, but they were 18-6 this past year. The year before, they were 19-10. And one thing to pay attention to going into next year, Jackson State has a 19-game home winning streak. Just something to think about. They don't lose too many times at home in Jackson State, and part of that is because of Coach Reed. So we want to congratulate Coach Reed. Jackson State had a great year, went to the tournament. They had to play Baylor in the first game, and I mean Baylor, with their size and everything. Baylor's Baylor. Chewed them. Baylor was just a bigger team, but Jackson State still had a great showing. They had a great fight, and it was a good thing to see. So, again, our women's coaches of the year: Charmaine Wilson of Edward Waters College, Trelane Powell from Tuskegee, and Tamika Reed from Jackson State. So we say congratulations, coaches. Drew, let's take another break. When we come back, let's go into talking about the men's All-American teams, our players of the year, coach of the years. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap with Bryan and A.D. We'll be back right after these words.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports
Tell everybody
Network.
they can follow their dreams.